Hello. We are getting started with the survival mind. Um, how we're hardwired for fear and scarcity, and how our consciousness, typically very unconsciously, we are reacting and responding to that wiring all the time. So I'm going to share my screen with you today. Just for some bullet points here. Um, okay, so how does the survival mind work? Ultimately, our biological wiring, our DNA, the systems of our physical body influence our relationship to life because the survival mind is a state of consciousness. It's a level of consciousness that is reacting and responding to your biological systems that are active in the body. What happens is those physical systems that are based on survival, on keeping you alive, on imminent danger and physical safety, they react in your body with tension, right? They alert you in the sensations of your body that something is dangerous, or that we're in an unsafe situation. And what happens is that response, that reaction is happening from your primitive brain, right? From your amygdala, from your reptilian brain. And your higher brain, your cortex, which is responsible for structure and order and understanding and making sense of things and explaining why you are reacting the way you are. That part of your brain is activating your survival mind, which is trying to make sense, right? It's trying to put order around what's happening in your body physically. So it is ultimately, your mind is ultimately reacting and responding to the biological instincts within your system. And we as human beings are biologically wired towards fear and scarcity. Our genetic makeup, our biology has not evolved for over 20,000 years. Our last major human evolution was language, but beyond our language, the adding of language around 20,000 years ago, very little has changed in our genetic, biological makeup since the days of cave people. So we have certain operating systems in our body: our central nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, our fight, flight, and freeze response, that primitive reptilian brain. All of these systems were designed to handle a physically stressful environment. They are designed to react and respond to physical danger and matters of life and death. And if you imagine cave people 20,000 years ago, obviously just being alive in a harsh, like, imminent danger around every corner, tigers, food scarcity, harsh environmental conditions, we were immersed in an environment that it made sense to have these systems highly, highly active in our makeup in order for our species to survive, right? But now we are living in a world, right, where we're not wondering if we're going to have food tomorrow. We're not wondering if we're going to survive the harsh winter, right? We have shelter, we have provisions. I mean, we can get strawberries in the middle of winter. We do not have the harsh physical environment and experience that we did 20,000 years ago. But because the instinct and the biology has not changed, the tension and the reaction and what's happening in your physical system is still active and alive. And because your mind wants to make sense of your physicality, what it does is it scans your environment and it scans your experience to try to provide the reason that you have a sensation of scarcity and danger active in your physical systems, excuse me. And now, because we live in an environment that doesn't match our biology, a large percentage of the population is still living in an overactive, hyper elevated fight, flight, or freeze sympathetic state. And this reaction, this impulse and instinct, the baseline is elevated and amplified by the intensity of the traumatic experiences that we have survived in our life experience. Scarcity is beyond a belief or a mindset. It is a biological and physical reaction that we need to inhibit in order to truly thrive. In this course, we will be talking not only about consciousness, we'll be talking about how to upgrade these biological systems, this central nervous system, autonomic nervous system, how to inhibit an elevated fight, flight, or freeze response, how to retrain your central nervous system to act in a way that provides the opportunity to rest and recover and to move beyond survival mode into a thriving state. We're going to address them on both levels, not just from a level of a mindset, not just from physical. We're going to address them from both situations, because the goal is to, one, identify the unconscious and instinctual patterns, both biologically and in your psyche. But it is also then to make intentional, conscious decisions to override and upgrade and elevate your consciousness, your mental thoughts, your behaviors, and your patterning. And also to take action that trains your body out of these biological survival mode ways of operating. Okay. So in order to just move beyond, scarcity as a mindset, here, I'll use this as an example. So the survival mind wants to answer two questions. Okay. It is trying to make sense of the physical sensations in your body, and it is constantly wondering, am I safe? And do I have enough? Am I safe? Do I have enough? Am I safe? Do I have enough? Typically, in cave person days, women needed protection and provision. So they were either protected by a male who was in charge of their physical safety, or they were protected through the inclusion of the tribe, right? There was safety in numbers. There was safety in sharing resources. There was safety in being of value, in providing services or things that were valuable to the group, right, in order to stay safe and not be rejected or not be excluded or banished from the tribe, it was important that you provide what was needed or that you mattered to the tribe, okay? And this means that women, the evolution of women, if our history is stored genetically in our DNA, so not only do we have a physical history in our DNA, but an emotional history in our DNA, individually and collectively, we as women learned from the beginning of time how to adapt to feedback, how to please in order to stay safe, and how to manipulate the situation in order to be safe. Rejection in cave person days was literally a matter of life and death, right? Because you could not survive on your own. You could not, one person, one woman could not live and survive and provide herself with all of the resources that she needed in order to stay alive, right? So rejection 20,000 years ago in cave people days was literally a matter of life and death. Although in our modern day society, women can do more than survive, right? Women can thrive on their own, as in provide money, shelter, food, safety, security. The biology doesn't know that. The biology is still operating out of instinct. And so the mind reacts to relationships, to bills, to money, to status, as to the potential of being rejected from the group, as if it were a matter of life and death. And this instinct creates a compulsion to be accepted and included and to be seen as purposeful and valuable and to be useful to someone or something else, because there is an instinct inside of us that says if we are rejected, if we are not disapproved of by either a man or by a group of whatever your tribe is, it might be your coworkers, your tribe might be your family, your tribe might be, the mommy group at school, the tribe might be your workout partners. You women innately run on the instinct that rejection is death. And now, because we have provisions, we have the amount of food that we need, we have the shelter, we're not worried about storing things up for winter or what will happen, right? If we need food, we just go to the store. But because the survival consciousness is so active in our collective and individual experience, and that impulse to answer the question of, am I safe and do I have enough, under the guise of knowing your physical safety needs are met and your provisions for resources are met, the question internally for a woman becomes, am I enough? You'll see that oftentimes the more comfortable that a person is in their safety and security around money and provisions, I'll use provisions like shelter and food and clothing, and what I have seen in my work and in observing the world at large is this current of this instinct of, am I enough and am I safe? When it is met in your physical needs, it really begins to show up in other places for most people. Okay. People who are truly living in survival mode that is reflected in their external environment. I'm talking like, I don't know if I have enough food for the end of the week. If you are buying this course, you're typically not going to be somebody who, you know, is wondering if they're going to have enough food tomorrow, right? You have access to internet, you have access to resources that allows you to invest in things beyond yourself and beyond your basic need for survival. But what I have found and what I see is that the people who are truly operating in survival mode, their consciousness is so focused on that, and that's their reality, that they don't really even have time to think about these other things, right? They don't know if they're safe, and they don't know if they have enough physically, so they don't even have time to translate it in like, am I enough? You know, like, am I enough? Do people like me? Am I a good enough this? Am I a good enough that? It's like they are just focused on surviving the next moment. And in the opposite, the people that I have worked with that are comfortable in their physical provisions, as in they have enough, that instinct really shows up in their relationship dynamics, in the illusion of safety and security in other people, in codependent relationships, in food allergies. I mean, I see so many people who have food allergies that is literally a reflection of this underlying instinctual behavior of not feeling safe. That it's a very interesting thing. Anyway, side note. Let's see. Okay, so your survival mind operates out of shadow. So shadow is a level of consciousness that operates from a misaligned relationship to power. Throughout this course, I will use the words survival mind and shadow interchangeably. Some people are more familiar with the word shadow. The majority of the consciousness, the majority of this planet lives in some sort of state of shadow relating, shadow experience, because very few people understand what real power is. The core belief of the survival mind, the core belief of shadow, is that power is outside of you. Power is something that is separate from you, which means that it can be lost or gained based on the outcomes of the people and the experiences of your life situations. It means that you have to grapple for control, that you have to grapple for power, that you have to try to manipulate and control outcomes and situations in effort to maintain power over something or someone, in an effort to not lose power in some way, shape, or form. In relationships, shadow often plays out through some form of codependency. Interesting. What's happening here? Okay. Codependency is a state of powerlessness based on the belief that your well-being And that can be your value, your worth, your happiness, your safety, your security, is contingent upon an external condition. That external condition can be a person, a situation, a circumstance, an outcome, right? And that condition, that outcome is beyond your control. Codependency is really about where you've handed over your power and your well-being and put it in the hands of somebody else and given them responsibility for the outcomes of your own life experience. Codependency is how most relationships at this point are ran through in some ways, because as children, we grew up, and this is no state of blame, this is just an explanation. We grew up with parents who were heavily, heavily in their shadow. And because they were in their shadow, they had a misaligned relationship to power and viewed power as external. They also didn't know how to self-regulate or control their emotional state or their well-being. And so in an attempt to feel better, they used external conditions to try to control and manipulate and get us, as little people, to adapt and change and respond to feedback in order to satisfy what was unresolved in them. And so at a very young age, we learned to care more about meeting the needs externally for the people around us, the relationships that we had in our lives, than we learned how to go inward into our knowing, to speak the truth, to stand in our integrity, to handle discomfort and tension in the dynamics of power and relationships. And so most relationships on some level are taught, I need you to do something for me so I can feel better, and I will do something for you so you can feel better. But ultimately, no one can act the way that you want them to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if your well-being is contingent on somebody else's behavior, either what they do or do not do, you will always be miserable. You will always be standing on a house of cards. You will always feel insecure and unsafe because you know somewhere inside that you can't rely on somebody to treat you the way that you need to be treated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without exception, no matter what, so that you can feel safe, secure, happy, worthy, whatever it is. And we will address that specifically as we move forward over the next 6 weeks. Because as long as somebody else outside of you is responsible for all of your well-being, you can never be at peace and you can never be at rest, because the stakes are always in somebody else's hands. So in this state of codependency, your mind believes that your survival depends on the outcome. And ultimately, more than just what the actual outcome is, it's what your mind believes that the outcome means. And so the outcome and what it means is ultimately what is at stake. And for the shadow or the survival mind, there are always stakes. Every single desire, every single attempt to control an outcome, every single behavior, thought, pattern, method of operation is all about managing, manipulating, and controlling the outcomes in attempt to either avoid losing something or gaining control over something. And it's all about what's at stake. And the stakes, they are what cause us to negotiate. They're what cause us to manipulate. They're what causes us to control. And it is all an effort to maintain our perceived safety. So as we move forward over the next 6 weeks, we are going to be unraveling our survival mind. We're going to be addressing the instincts in our physical body. We're going to be recognizing the thought patterns. What does the shadow say? How does the shadow operate? What does it do? What does it look like? How does it show up in my life? What are the areas of my life where I'm operating out of shadow? What do I think the stakes are? And this work is all about elevating your consciousness in order to give you the power to be the authority over your experience. The reason we do this work is because it's about the quality of your life experience. What is it that you actually want to experience? What is it that actually matters to you? Where can you see where you've been operating in hopes of gaining an external outcome that matters to the external world, that matters to some sort of group that you think, holds power in your life? Becoming the authority over your life experience is understanding and knowing that you decide what things mean. Let's see, understand and recognize the role of the shadow, how it works, what are the thought patterns, what are the behaviors, what are the stakes. It's important to begin to recognize and understand what has been happening, because most of this has been unconscious. It is like an automatic, instinctual collaboration between your instinctual biology and your unconscious psyche programming. They have been just on autopilot doing what they think that they need to do in order for you to stay safe and in order for you to survive. We are going to talk about consciousness and our psyche, the way our mind works, through the structure of archetypes. Archetypes give form and structure to both our shadow consciousness, right? Our disempowered state of consciousness, and our light consciousness or our empowered consciousness. So how the archetypes basically are putting a symbolic identity. We're giving the aspects of your psyche a personality in order for you to understand your thoughts, your patterns, your behavior. And what it does is when you put that form and structure and identity around those parts of your psyche, it gives your higher brain the opportunity to understand what is actually happening, right? Because your cortex is trying to understand and make sense of the situation. So you are feeding it intentionally with the opportunity to understand the patterns of your psyche. And then I will provide you with tools in how to override and upgrade to the next empowered, purposeful, intentional state of consciousness, which is often which will be referred to in this course as the light or empowered consciousness. This work is truly about a power takeover. Okay, you have had your shadow psyche running the show of your life unconsciously, and you will have to decide that you are no longer willing to allow your mind and the reactions to your external environment to run you. Your mind does not have a mind of its own unless you allow it to. Your mind does not have a mind of its own unless you allow it to. You will have to decide that that is the absolute truth and that you have the power to face down, identify, and eliminate the shadow patterns and methods of operation that have been running your life experience, no matter what. You will learn to identify the places that you've scattered your power. You're going to see who you've handed your power over to, what outcomes you've handed your power over to. You'll see how it more in depth, how the shadow understands your relationship to power. And we will go through the process of reclaiming and connecting with and identifying true internal power. And not only will you need to do the consciousness work, right? The belief systems, the patterns, the mental, the thoughts, the identifying the lies from the truth and connecting with the absolute truth of things. You will have to take it one step further. This is not just about an intellectual experience. You will have to begin to take decisive, precise action from a place of integrity in alignment with your light consciousness, with your empowered state of elevated psyche, over and over and over, to learn how to trust yourself and to learn how to embody the consciousness of an empowered state. Okay? I see way too many people learn about the archetypes, learn about the shadow, and only ever be able to identify it and understand it and justify it and look to it. There's something that needs to connect where you understand this and then you take it and apply it to your life experience over and over and over and over until it becomes your natural way of operating. We'll go way into depth into each of these. This is just our first intro experience to what is happening. As you keep moving forward through the content, you will get a sense of what and how to do this, but I cannot reiterate enough. It will take you making the decision to act upon the information that you are given if you actually want something to happen in your life. And I will show you how to connect with the higher truth of the empowered archetypes. What are they? What do they believe? What do they know to be actually true beyond the truth of what you've seen and what you've experienced and what you have evidence for? Because what you have evidence for and what you have experienced can be true because you've seen it, but it doesn't mean it's the absolute truth. And I will show you and teach you and support you into embodying those energy systems, acting as if, acting in accordance with the light archetype's elevated level of consciousness. I want to touch on power. I want to touch on power because most people are absolutely terrified of connecting with their true power because they have no idea what true power is, because their only understanding of power is through shadow, external power, power over, dominating, manipulating, controlling, grappling for power. They do not understand what true power is internally. True power has absolutely nothing to do with the external world. True power is your inner connection to your inner knowing, your inner connection to knowing that you are more than this physical body, this human experience. You have a connection to something greater and more powerful than the moment. True power is trusting yourself no matter what. It is taking all of the confirmation and the validation and the what do you thinks and the need to be understood and the need to confirm. It is you deciding that you have your back no matter what it looks like, no matter what the outcome is, no matter what happens. You are in charge of you and what that means in your life. Power is knowing that you are more than the sum of your experiences. And that no matter what you have been believing about yourself thus far, you do not have to continue to see it that way. You do not have to perpetuate that cycle and move it forward. And that you have the freedom moment by moment to decide if that is true or not. Power is knowing that who and what you are does not equal your outcomes or the perceived meaning that you have placed on those outcomes. For 30 years, I believed that I was fragile. I believed that my world was unsafe. I believed that I had to hide and protect myself in order to survive. And that was a result of being raped at 5 years old. I believed that I was broken, that there must be something wrong with me. I believed that there was that the best part of me died when I was 5 years old, that I should have been and could have been somebody so amazing if that had not happened to me. But because it did, I really had to live in a place of struggle, and it must have somehow been my fault. And I handed all of my power into what I made, even if it was unconsciously. I made the decision of what that experience meant in my life about me and about my world. And it was all made up. And when I decided that that was no longer going to be the truth, that was no longer going to be the pattern in which I ordered my life, that I was reclaiming all of my power, that nothing had been lost, that nothing had been destroyed, that nothing had died, that nothing had injured me beyond repair and beyond recovery, and that nobody had the right and the power to say what that experience meant in my life that I was in charge of it, that I was in charge in placing the meaning, that I was in charge in where my power was and where my power is still to this day. It utterly and completely changed my life instantly. And I decided that no matter what, I was in charge of what I believed about myself and my experience, no matter what anyone else had to say about it, ever. And my life began to change dramatically, very quickly. You are not the sum of your experiences, and you are not the sum of what other people say are the outcomes of your experience. I now live my life totally and completely free from any sort of sexual trauma, physically, mentally, and emotionally and spiritually. It has all been eradicated from the cells of my body, from the cells of my psyche, from my system completely. And it started with knowing that that outcome and my power were two completely separate things. True power is knowing that you decide the meaning of who you are, no matter what has happened in your past. And power is knowing that no one and nothing can take anything away from you that you are not willing to give, that you are not willing to hand over, regardless of what that experience looks like in the physical world. We will go deep into power. This is a taste of it. You have the ability to stand steady and act in integrity with your inner knowing, regardless of what is happening in the external world, no matter what. And you have the power to choose to respond in the way that you desire, no longer being tossed and torn by the circumstances at hand or the he said, she said, or the worst case scenarios or the catastrophes that you're trying to avoid. You have the opportunity to move beyond reaction. You have the opportunity to move beyond this moment. And you also have the opportunity to put the past behind you completely. To have the past no longer impact your present. To live as if the past never happened. And that is the freaking ultimate freedom. Ultimate freedom. And the reason that I know that is possible for you is because I have been living it. And I have been teaching my clients to live it as well. And my work here is to hold that tone of truth for you while you are unraveling and preparing and connecting with it for yourself. So as we move forward over these next 6 weeks, we're going to deep dive into all of these things. If you have questions as you are moving through the content, please email me, randylarsoncoaching@gmail.com. Yeah. I will do my best to answer your questions in a timely manner. The next thing we'll be doing is diving into the archetypes. Some of the recordings have PDFs. This PDF is available inside the session if you want to print it up. Some of them have questions and some of them have further, inquiry into your own personal experience. So we'll be moving forward from here. And if you have questions, reach out. Until next time.